Okay, good morning and welcome to today's 20-minute update, BCF's monthly series of interactive calls and Facebook live streams to give you an inside look at BCF, our initiatives, and the work we're doing here in Baltimore City, Baltimore County, and the entire region. Thanks for joining us. I'm Andrew Waldman with BCF. Joining me on the call today are Catherine Banat of RBC Global Asset Management. She is the Managing Director and Director of Responsible Lending there at RBC. Good morning, Catherine. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us. And Patti and Andrew and Baltimore Community Foundation, thank you for including us in this call.
We are very lucky to have you. And also in the studio with me is Patti Chandler, who is the VP of Finance and Administration here at BCF. Good morning.
Good morning, Andrew.
Okay, before we get started, I just want to take a quick minute to thank BCF's Civic Leadership Fund donors for their support. It's because of the Civic Leadership Fund that we are able to do calls like this, so thank you very much. Okay, on July 29th, Catherine and Patti co-wrote a thought-provoking op-ed that was published in the Baltimore Sun about how the Baltimore region might come together and create a successful regional economic plan. If I could just read a brief passage to give you a little bit of what they said. We've had the privilege of being in rooms with willing donors, foundations, bankers, civic officials, entrepreneurs, and others who all, like us, want real change in Baltimore, one that would expand opportunity across communities. And while those discussions are fruitful, they will be more productive still once we have the conversations referenced above, with the goal of answering the question, what's the overall regional economic development strategy for our city? So, I guess with that, and also just want to let you know that you probably see it on the screen right now. If you want to see that op-ed, if you go to j.mp/Balt Regional Plan, you can see the full text of that Sun editorial. It's right there on the screen for you. Okay, so Patti, tell us a little bit about how this op-ed came to be, especially, in particular, this idea of regional economic planning.
When the Baltimore Community Foundation began their journey on impact investing, we really were trying to take assets that had been invested in Wall Street and move them to Main Street. And in doing that, we found that the opportunities weren't as robust as we had hoped they were. We really wanted to make sure that these investments were benefiting the communities of color in Baltimore that had classically not had access to capital. And those opportunities were not as robust as we had hoped they would be. So as we started delving into those deficiencies, we really began to enter into conversations with other philanthropists, with other local institutions, and just found that what we were lacking was a cohesive plan.
Great. So, Catherine, I wanted to just give you a chance to tell us a little bit about RBC and why you're interested in Baltimore.
Sure. So we at RBC have been dedicated to impact investing, which we believe must combine a market rate of return for the investment and measurable impact, and directing those investments to particular cities or states. Since RBC bought Access Capital in 2008, and Access was launched back in 1998. So we have a long history of targeting dollars to a particular community, and through that have seen the power of convening investors who share an interest in a particular community. We've been working in the state of Minnesota. We've been working in the Pacific Northwest, specifically in other areas around the country. And as we've started to collaborate with the Baltimore Community Foundation, we wanted to bring our knowledge and experience in the value of convening and collaborating to address issues in a particular region.
That's great. So thinking a little bit more about collaborating, that's a good segue into my next question. So we already have, at least I've heard about other economic development groups in Baltimore. And sort of they've had plans around regional development. What have those plans focused on in the past?
A lot of the plans that we've examined, especially those that have been done within the last 5 years, have really been geared to specific funding opportunities to obtain state or federal grants, and really have been defined around the requirements for those grants. So as we look at the opportunities that face us today, and in conversation with some of the organizations that have reached out to us as a result of the op-ed, the current agenda for these groups is to take a more holistic approach, to talk to communities, to talk to local government, to make sure that multiple voices are at the table and that it's a different plan coming up in this next iteration.
So, you talked a little bit about how those plans are specifically geared. What did those plans, you kind of talked about this, but if you could specifically tell us a little bit about what those plans are missing. Like, what are those little pieces that, who do we need to talk to? Who are those folks out there?
When you're applying for a direct federal grant, you really do write to the specific requirements of the grant. But when you're looking at creating a regional economic plan, the organizations that I've spoken with really are looking at it on a more holistic approach. They want to make sure that they're speaking with the communities and that these are neighborhood informed needs that they're identified. They also want to make sure that they're working with local government, they're working with the nonprofit organizations that are in those communities, the community development financial institutions, the CDFIs, the philanthropic partners, and really taking a holistic approach with anchor institutions to how they could change the economics, because it's going to take all of those partners to really make the plan effective.
This question just popped into my mind. We hear about people getting loans for their business as, lay people. What are the challenges that a business in Baltimore faces, maybe on the west side of town trying to get that loan? Like, what are the roadblocks or challenges that they face that a plan like this would try to address?
Part of what we know and understand that makes local neighborhoods thrive are a great proliferation of local businesses. And we have lots of entrepreneurs in Baltimore that really truly have great ideas and have the means to execute on these local businesses. But they lack access to capital. They can't raise the initial friends and family round that often happens in a small business. They lack collateral. They don't necessarily have stellar credit records, because in some cases they've attempted to launch their businesses on credit cards or really high interest rate debt. So when that happens, you create an infrastructure that makes it very difficult for local banks to be able to lend to them, because they lack collateral, they lack the credit ratings that would exist in order to get classic bank financing. So when we looked at the opportunities and how that void has been filled, the local branch really isn't able to meet that need. So the CDFIs, or the Community Development Financial Institutions, are the answer to that. They aren't regulated as highly, and they are able to address the needs of these small growing entrepreneurs so that they can gain access to the capital, and not at a rate that's going to bankrupt them before they even get off the ground.
Interesting.
I think that's an incredibly important point, and I'd like to underscore that with a little bit of research. The Institute for a Competitive Inner City, ICIC, has done a lot of research and says that local efforts to strengthen and grow small businesses can have a huge impact, and is probably more important in terms of job creation than attracting large corporations to a city. They've looked at 10 cities, and they've seen that small businesses with no more than 250 employees can make up at least 99% of all jobs and businesses in the city. And micro businesses with 1 to 4 employees are creating more jobs. And in 7 of those 10 cities, small businesses were even more important in the inner city and lowered inner city unemployment. They also talk about the importance of incubators and accelerators. And I think that really underscores what Patti is saying, which is that small businesses are really important to thriving inner cities. And the challenge is, where does the capital come from?
So that kind of leads right into my next question, Catherine, which was sort of this broader view. You've worked in a lot of different cities. You kind of mentioned a few at the top of the call. Where would Baltimore start in this process of planning?
So I think there are a number of factors. I think the sort of theme that I'd like to underscore is that pushing on one issue together can drive change. And if you've got diffuse resources going after diffuse issues, what happens is it gets diluted too much to really make a difference. What we've seen, and Patti mentioned community development finance institutions, CDFIs, really important to convening and engaging in the process. They have neighborhood understanding, on the ground understanding of what neighborhoods need and what can be done, and that local expertise can really add value to the process. I think the other piece is public-private partnerships and mission-oriented lenders. In Detroit, a combination of mission-oriented lenders and government subsidies have played a critical role in Detroit's resurgence. Now, that's partially because they went bankrupt and everybody needed to, figure this out. And that's been focused mostly on housing and commercial and industrial development rather than small businesses. But I think that's an interesting example of resources coalescing to collaborate for a particular goal. We've seen that in a number of other communities. So mission-oriented lenders, CDFIs who understand the needs, and combination of public and private money through subsidies and directed dollars can really drive change.
That's great. I have a couple questions about CDFIs, but I wanted to pause really quickly and just ask if anyone had any questions. If you're listening on the phone, if you have a question, you can hit *6 on your keypad and unmute yourself to ask the question, and then just hit *6 after you ask it, and we'll put you back into mute. So are there any questions on the phone line? If you have a question on Facebook, you can just type it straight into the Facebook comment section for the Facebook live stream, and we will take a look at that and read it back. So if you're on the phone, hit *6 to unmute yourself and ask a question now. Okay, I do have one question from Facebook, and it is a little bit of an interesting question here. It is regarding transportation infrastructure. And the question is, shouldn't any economic development plan address transportation? How does transportation fit into the plan? Catherine, I don't know if you've ever, worked in a city that has integrated the transportation or infrastructure piece into their regional economic plan. Is that something that gets discussed in these types of plans?
We have not. I think the issue with transportation is that it's a heavy lift, and it's something that requires city planning and big government dollars, and that's harder for CDFIs and mission lenders to engage with. So for the purpose of this call and this group, yes, it's an important feature, but often where we get involved is in looking at housing that's near transportation as opposed to trying to drive change on the transportation side.
Got it. Okay, hearing no more questions, I wanted to just talk a little bit more about CDFIs because this is a point that comes up in your op-ed as well. And this is maybe more of a nuts and bolts thing. Can you tell us a little bit more about what CDFIs are? I know there's probably some people on this call that aren't familiar with that concept. Patti or Catherine?
Catherine, do you want to lead off on this one and I'll follow up?
Sure. CDFIs are essentially not-for-profit banks. Mm-hmm. They tend to have a mission to work within a community, although there are some national CDFIs. Patti and I have talked to a couple of them together that are interested in helping Baltimore. They focus generally on small business and affordable housing and driving change through that. They take deposits and they make loans, and they also take in equity capital in order to support their balance sheets. Often they're capped by the size of their balance sheets, and so anything that helps CDFI balance sheets grow, either equity or deposits, can be very helpful in driving change.
Great, and I know we have a few here in town. I mean,
we do, and we have been trying to really tease out in local partnership with other philanthropic leaders how we take the local players in this space, which are a breadth of groups that really need to work together. So we have a couple of really decent CDFIs that we've had conversations with, and we really want to see them grow and get to scale, and for them to really partner effectively with the technical assistance providers. That's a very challenging environment. When you take a small business and you try to make them loanable, it often requires them to be able to address business needs in a more sophisticated way. They have to have a business plan, they have to have cash flow statements, and they need to be taught in some cases how to prepare those. So the ability to deploy capital goes hand in hand with the right technical assistance to go with it. So we've been working together to try to encourage this community, help them study and evaluate together and get to scale. A lot of great players in this space though. Latino Economic Development, we have Baltimore Community Lending, Harbor Bank has a CDFI as well, and we're working with other institutions that are brand new into the CDFI space and them gaining access to it. And Healthy Neighborhoods is probably one of our most and robust in this space. So as we continue to work with partners, this is our primary conduit for how we get investments into the community. They're our partners for making investments from our endowment pool into the community.
Great. I just, in a sec, I want to talk more about the impact investing piece of this and how that gets into it. But we do have another question from Facebook, and I'm going to read it to you now. Have you ever considered exploring how grassroots investment through crowdfunding could also help bring new capital to local businesses, thus creating ways for area residents to invest in area businesses?
We actually have had conversations with some groups here in Baltimore that are trying to bring that type of platform into the space. We're not excluding any platforms as we look at the opportunities for small businesses. Some are going to go into a face-to-face relationship with a CDFI. Others may be more adept in going into the internet to find crowdfunding opportunities. And we're really trying to create a continuum of capital. So no, that has not been ignored, but it's a little less robust here in Baltimore. So if there's our opportunities for us to reach out to those organizations, please contact us.
Yeah, so just if you're on the phone right now and you want to ask a question, hit *6 and unmute yourself. Anybody have a question on the call? Okay, so we've talked a lot about regional economic planning, CDFIs. I want to talk a little bit more about why Patti and Catherine actually know each other, and that's through impact investing here in Baltimore. So Patti, I don't know if you want to give like a quick elevator pitch for
I think we have a question.
Oh, we have a question?
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't think to unmute. Just a real quick, more of a comment than a question. And I would love to meet with Patti and Catherine at a convenient time. This is Michelle Welly. I'm the CEO of the Economic Alliance of Greater Baltimore, and we are a regional economic development marketing organization. After 50-some individual meetings with local government officials and private sector employers, et cetera, what I hear over and over and over again in terms of the regional picture is the need for out-of-region marketing. So as you all proceed with what I think is an excellent focus on small business development, CDFIs, I think there needs to be also a bigger picture component of the interests of our regional counties in terms of marketing our assets and opportunities outside of the region to bring more businesses into the region. I know that's not the focus for small business development. I just wanted to make that comment.
Okay.
Thank you so much for that comment. And if you want to, you can find Patti's email address on our website, but if you...
Right, and I've already emailed her yet.
Okay,
Awesome.
Okay, great. I'm glad we can make that connection here today. Go ahead, Catherine.
I'd just like to highlight that this op-ed was born out of a dinner Patti and I had over her birthday dinner. And I think it's a gift that has kept on giving, and I think it's a gift that can keep on giving. And it's really important for everybody to get around a table and start to figure out how they can collaborate and how they can bring their individual components to driving change and get the things, be catalytic capital.
That's great. So we're coming right up on the end of our call here. I just wanted maybe just if you can give a quick overview of Invest for More for our callers who may not know about it.
Absolutely.
I was trying to hint that Patti and Catherine have worked on this this initiative here at BCF for a while, and then we'll close up the call. So,
Invest for More is the program here at the Baltimore Community Foundation where everyone can participate. If you are a fund holder that has an endowed fund, you're already in the pool. You participate by virtue of the fact that we carved assets out of the endowment pool to go directly in. We felt it was necessary that we use our money first. If you are a donor advisor, you can also, to a non-endowed fund, you can participate by designating a portion of your assets, and we welcome as well gifts directly into the impact fund. This fund was really meant to move money from Wall Street to Main Street. We over and over again understood the value of the 95% of the assets that are held at community foundations as well as private foundations, that the 5% that's given away or thereabouts is really not enough, and that we needed to make sure that we were using all of the tools available in order to make impact in Baltimore. That if we really only relied on grant making, we would have been there by now. So for us to put direct investments in our community was a critical juncture for us to be able to say, donors, please come along with us.
that's great. And if you want to learn more about Invest for More, you can go to bcf.org/investformore. Okay, so we're actually past time. I want to thank both Patti Chandler and Catherine Banat for joining me on the call today. If you have any more questions, you can just put those right in the Facebook comments, and we can try to answer those for you after the call. So thanks for joining us today. We're going to be back next month with our next call. Have a great weekend.